Everyone, David Aragona and Craig Milkowski are taking a look at race 9 at Aqueduct on Saturday. It is the Aqueduct Turf Sprint Championship. This one going 6 furlongs for the older runners on the outer turf course. And Craig, we've got a full field signed on for this one. 12 horses in the main body of the field entered for turf, including a couple of also eligibles plus 2 MTOs. There's a lot going on in this race.
This is a really good field. I was actually surprised this isn't a graded race. I guess a lot of these horses were running short on turf racing in the Northeast, so maybe wanting to take advantage. But I'm really looking forward to this one.
Even though it's a large competitive field, I think it's pretty clear that the number 4, Our Shot, is the horse to beat. The connections had wanted to get him into the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. That race was oversubscribed. It didn't work out. So he's going to target this slightly lesser spot instead. But he ran really well in his prior start, Craig. And I think based on his recent consistent form, he's got to be considered the deserving favorite.
Yeah, I would agree with that. He's versatile. He runs good speed figures, very consistent. He's come from off the pace. He's come from on the pace, led. So, yeah, he seems like a very deserving favorite.
And his versatility should help him with the pace scenario of this race, because it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out as we take a look at the Timeform US pace projector. There definitely is some speed in here, Craig. I mean, the number 6, Nothing Better, we know that he likes to go fast on the front end, and he'll probably send from his middle of the pack post position. But his main pace rival, the number 12, Dancing Buck, is drawn in the far outside. It's going to be tough to get forward from there. And then you've got some other horses that have shown speed at different times coming out of lesser races, like the number 5, Boats of Rockin, or the number 7, For Harp, who can go really fast on the front end at times. So I think this is going to be an interesting race for the jockeys to see who gets aggressive.
I do as well. I mean, there's some horses who have done all their best running on the front end, starting with Nothing Better, but it's never an easy proposition when you have real speed drawn to your outside, and he has that in Dancing Buck.
You do see the number 4, Our Shot, showed right in the middle of the pace projector. The number 1, Witt, would certainly appreciate any pace that does develop. He's got the Timeform US LP flag, indicating he has the highest late pace rating in this field. And that's where we'll begin as we go through these contenders, beginning with the number 1, Witt. And Craig, this will be the first time that he ever competes in a turf sprint. They tried to do it last time, but that Belmont Turf Sprint Championship got rained off the turf onto the main track. That suited Witt just fine, because we know that he handles the dirt. He made a nice late run to finish 3rd that day, just running out of real estate at the end. His prior turf form had been a little bit inconsistent. He had kind of ended on a sour note before the layoff, came back and didn't do much running in the Bernard Baruch, but maybe he needed that race. And you could argue that last performance on the dirt suggests that he's rounding back into form.
Yeah, it would seem that way. I think I actually liked him last time, I remember, before that race came off the turf onto the dirt. And as you say, he hasn't been in a turf sprint. I've always thought he's a better sprinter than he is a router, though he had a little success routing earlier or as a 3-year-old. But I think he's dangerous in this spot. But this place we have him shown on the pace projector, I think, shows the negatives for him, in that he's going to have to pass a lot of horses.
The number 2 is Alagon, and he's another horse that's coming out of that rained off the turf Belmont Turf Sprint Championship. He ran pretty well that day, Craig, considering that he previously had been a horse that really couldn't do much on the dirt. He had run much better in all of his turf races. So I think that good 1:14 Timeform US speed figure on the dirt at least suggests that he's maintaining the strong form that we had seen from him in his prior turf races. And his last turf race was a really good one at Colonial, where he forged to the front end in that DeHaas at mid-stretch and just got run down at the end, but run down by No Balls, who did come back to upset the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint.
Yeah, I was going to make that same point. It's not like he was losing to some nobody horse. No Balls has obviously gone on to much bigger and better things. He's just a 4-year-old, so there's still time for him to keep improving. If he improves off that 117 at Colonial, he's going to be very dangerous.
Yeah, and he's another one that's got some good versatility. He can come from just off the pace and is drawn well down towards the inside over a turf course that is scheduled to have the rails set at 0 feet. The number 3 is Vacation Dance, and he's a horse that we just need to take a big step forward from a speed figure standpoint. He's coming out of some allowance races where he's run decently well, beaten the Yorkbreds 2 back, and then finished a closing 3rd against Open Company last time, but this is a step up in class.
This is a big step up. He's a horse who's yet to hit the 110 on Time Form US. He's still just a 3-year-old, so he would surprise me if he found his way into even contention.
The number 4 is Our Shot. He ran really well in his prior start, finishing second in the Grade 2 Woodford behind Arzak. That was supposed to be a prep for the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. Some others from that race made it into the Turf Sprint. Our Shot was excluded, but he's just been in really solid, consistent form in these Turf Sprints basically all year, being involved in the finishes every time. Finished just behind Thin White Duke 2 back in the Harvey Pack, was a game winner of an allowance race 3 back at Saratoga. He just makes a lot of sense in here.
Yeah, he fits. He's got the good speed figures. He had a bit of a tough trip last time, we think. It was kind of hard to see on the replay, which I assume is why we're not showing it. But when you watch, you can kind of get the feeling that things didn't go his way. That's why he was shuffled way back. And he made a big run in the stretch. So I think he maybe has some more in the tank. He's another 4-year-old who could be moving in the right direction.
Yeah, I was about to send in that Our Shot replay on our rundown, but he was never in the camera shot, so it didn't seem worth showing it. The number 5, Boats a Rockin, is a horse that's stepping up out of some lesser races in Maryland and Pennsylvania. He did win an allowance optional claimer last time when he was actually in for the $40,000 claiming tag, and did so with a respectable speed figure. That 117 is basically the best that he's achieved in his career. Craig, this horse loves to win turf sprint races, but he's just done most of his winning against softer company.
It has been. He seems like he would be dangerous based on speed figures, but as you look on the left-hand side of his PPs at those race ratings, it kind of shows he hasn't been facing these kind. I mean, every now and then these kind of horses will jump up and reproduce the form when they take a step up in class, but it's not something I usually like to bet on.
The number 6 is Nothing Better. We'll take a look at his most recent race over this same 6-furlong configuration at Aqueduct back in September. This was an optional claiming race, but a fairly high-level race. He was beaten by a good horse in Today's Flavor, who came back to win that off-the-turf Belmont Turf Sprint in his next start. And Nothing Better put in his typical performance here, Craig. Showed a ton of early speed, got past in the stretch, but he battles gamely all the way to the wire. This horse is a really hard trier who's going to be on go right from the start, and we'll see if he can take them all the way.
He's dangerous. He won this race last year in wire-to-wire fashion over this same course, so he's you would think he's got one tactic, and that's go to the front. A little interesting, he gets a new rider in Dylan Davis. He's had a ton of riders in his career, but never this one. But I would assume the instructions are go to the front, and I've got no knocks on his last race. He just lost to a horse who's in really good form right now. Took to the turf first time out. Haven't seen him run back on it, unfortunately, because of the weather in New York to see if just how good Today's Flavor is. But I suspect he's very good, so I don't hold much against Nothing Better there.
Yeah, he didn't get the best trip too back when he finished behind Alagon and Whitty in that Wolf Hill Stakes. That was a race where the pace really heated up, and he's got plenty of prior 120 plus time form US speed figures that would make him awfully tough in here. The number 7 is For Harpen. This horse could potentially be a thorn in the side of Nothing Better, drawn right alongside him in the starting gate. He was the one, or one of a few, that was mixing it up in the early stages of that Wolf Hill at Monmouth, where Nothing Better just couldn't deal with the fast pace that day. For Harp ran a big speed figure when he won on the turf at Laurel back in July, but that was a course that had plenty of give in it. Since then, he has not been as successful, fading in his most recent starts, including a couple on the dirt. Gets back on the turf here, but I think he's got something to prove over a firm course.
I would agree. That one speed figure really sticks out, but that course was a bog that day at Laurel. Nothing else in his PPs really comes close to that. And he's a horse who just doesn't have a lot of finish when things don't go his own way. So he would be more of a pace nuisance for Nothing Better than a win contender, in my opinion.
Let's take a look at the last race of the number 8 Whitty when he was a winner of the Maryland Million Turf Sprint as the odds-on favorite. And boy, this was just a dream trip that Helion Toledo was able to work out. Coming up the rail, found a clear path. There's that rail position just open for him at every stage through the stretch, and Whitty is able to scoot up on by this field along the inside. He's a really solid performer in these turf sprints, Greg. He's rarely out of the exacta, but has primarily been competing on the mid-Atlantic circuit. This is going to be a step up in class for him, and I do wonder if there are just some better closers in this race.
I would think so. I mean, he got a perfect trip, as you note, last time, and he still only ran a 105 time form US speed figure. The best one he's run on turf is a 111, and I think his best career speed figure came on dirt. So he's not for me, and good luck to the track announcer with Witt and Witty in the same race.
The number 9 is Grateful Bread, and he's a likable Maryland-based horse, Craig, who's run well on a number of occasions over the past few seasons. It just kind of feels like he's off form this year. He hasn't hit the board in any of his 2023 starts, and now stepping up into the toughest race that he's attempted so far this year, this feels like a tough assignment.
It does. He's a 7-year-old now. He hasn't been able to reproduce the speed figures that he was able to run in summer as 6-year-old and then his 5-year-old season. He does still seem to have plenty of early speed, though, so he could be in the mix for that early lead as well and really contribute to what we expect to be a fast pace.
Number 9, or 10, I should say, is Run Curtis Run, who's coming off a fourth place finish behind Vacation Dance here, we already talked about last time in an Aqueduct allowance race. But that was his first start off a very long layoff. He might have needed that race. He had run really well over this course and distance in the Carl Place back in October of 2022, went off form after that, Craig. But if you could make a case that he needed the last race and could take a step forward here, maybe he's a long shot you want to consider somewhere.
Yeah, it wouldn't shock me if he ran well. He's a horse who, first time out, he was able to win. He had a long layoff early in his career, came back and ran well. So I'm maybe a little more skeptical of that last race. He didn't show his same usual speed, but you're putting a lot of faith in Mike Maker if you like this horse. I just didn't see anything in his return.
The number 11 is Thin White Duke. Let's take a look at his most recent victory in the Harvey Pack Stakes, which was also his last turf race, going back to the end of the Saratoga meet. And he was really game to make this big run down the center of the turf course to run down a couple of horses that he's facing again here, including the morning line favorite Our Shot. Also in this race is Big Invasion, who is the runner-up to Thin White Duke this day. And Big Invasion, of course, came back a couple of starts later to just narrowly miss in the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. So the Turf Sprint form of Thin White Duke is strong. He's even run well on the dirt in his last couple of starts, Craig. So this horse just keeps thriving on the aggressive schedule that his connections have had him on.
Yeah, he clearly seems to be in top form, and he's been in it for a while and holding it. That turf race at Saratoga, I really liked. He was able to overcome a pretty soft pace. It didn't seem to matter. He was able to run by him late. The one real concern I have with him is the 11 post position. It could make things a little tough for him to save ground around that first turn.
And post position is also going to be a concern for the number 12, Dancing Buck, who is another horse that might be cycling back into better form. He came off the layoff in the Harvey Pack that we just looked at, was setting a slow to moderate pace that day, but it was his first start back. And I think the inside part of the Mellon turf course wasn't really where you wanted to be during that period of time at Saratoga. So maybe you give him a pass for that race. Then he was on dirt last time. That's not his preferred surface. So you could make a case that Dancing Buck has a better performance on the turf coming to him, but you just wonder if he can achieve a better result from this far outside post position.
Yeah, I do. I agree with you. I think he has dirtied up form based on those last couple of races. I think you can put a line through the dirt, had some issues with where he was on the track. But that said, he draws the far outside. He is a horse who's done his best running when able to control the pace with moderate fractions, and hard to envision that scenario here with all the speed drawn to his inside.
Also want to give a quick mention to the number 13, Bring Me a Check. He just needs one scratch to draw into this race, and that seems very possible with plenty of shippers entered. He's been in good form, even though he hasn't necessarily been winning races recently, Craig. Since the claim by Pat Reynolds, he was second at a big price in the Bernard Baruch 2-back, and then was closing after encountering some traffic and upper stretch behind Nothing Better last time. He's not out of it, but is another horse that would have to overcome a pretty tough post.
Yeah, that's the bad thing. Even if he draws in, he's going to get the far outside post, but he does have more of an off the pace running style. He's pretty versatile. So he's certainly a horse with a chance if he's able to draw in.
Well, let's throw up our picks for this Aqueduct Turf Sprint Championship, Craig. And I agree, the horse that you have on top, Our Shot, he is the horse to beat in this race. He's so reliable. I just wondered if he could be a short price, especially with Irad Ortiz taking over the mount here, but he arguably is the most likely winner.
Yeah, I have to be honest. I didn't have the morning line when I made my selections. I'm not sure I would have picked him on top. And I should have known he was going to be the favorite looking at it. I didn't put that much thought into it, but I do think he is the most likely winner. I love his versatility in here. He gets a rider change to Irad Ortiz, which is never a negative other than at the window. But I think Thin White Duke, he could work out a trip as well. So either of those top two for me, if they offer any kind of value.
Yeah, it was a tough call for my top pick between the number six, Nothing Better, who I do have affinity for, and I think he's a dangerous threat to wire this field. But the number two, Alagon, has just been in great form recently. Doesn't often get the respect that he deserves from the bettors at the windows, and he ran really well in his prior turf sprint start in that DeHaas and then held his form on the dirt last time. So I think he's very dangerous from an inside post position. So the number two, Alagon for me, and the number four, Our Shot for Craig in race 9 at Aqueduct, the Aqueduct Turf Sprint Championship. Good luck if you're playing the races this weekend.